Every year for Halloween, we carve several pumpkins and display them on a table in our front yard. Last year, a couple of weeks after October 7th, we carved an Israeli flag into one of our pumpkins to show our support for and our solidarity with Israel. My heart sank the next morning when I noticed a gaping hole in that pumpkin and the Star of David on the ground. Our other pumpkins appeared untouched. We were already on edge, and it was unsettling to think that someone who hated Israel or Jews so much had been on our property. I did not know what to tell our children. I generally report incidents of anti-Semitism to the police and encourage everyone to do the same, but I was hesitant to call the police out of concern that doing so would create more upset and alarm at a sensitive time for our Jewish community. After anxiety, I felt anger. And the story of Jonah that we are going to read this afternoon came to mind. After the whale portion of the story, Jonah becomes angry with God. And God says to Jonah, "Hahetev haralach." Is it good for you to be angry? Which many commentators read as, what can you do with your anger? I needed to do something with my anger. So we found a larger pumpkin. I carved another Israeli flag. We set up a surveillance camera to monitor our front yard and the table with the pumpkins. A couple of nights later, around 2 a.m., we received an alert that motion had been detected. I checked the live feed and saw that the Israeli flag pumpkin was on the ground. I began reviewing the footage and watched how just a few minutes before, a deer had ambled up, sniffed, and then bit the Israeli flag pumpkin, lifting it in the air and dropping it on the ground. There have been a few points this past year when it felt like everyone, even the wild animals, were against us, the state of Israel, and the Jewish people. But I had good reason to suspect foul play. Over the past year around our country and even locally, pro-Israel yard signs have been defaced and removed. Swastikas and anti-Israel graffiti have been scrawled in public spaces. And synagogues, including our own, have received bomb threats. Some of you have shared your concerns and anxiety about security at our synagogue and personal safety at home. There have been many moments when we have individually and collectively said, "Oy." Kohelet wrote, "Ve'ein kol chadash tachat hashamesh." There is nothing new under the sun. Anti-Semitism has been called the longest hatred by many historians. Let us consider the present in the context of Jewish history going all the way back to our patriarch Abraham, who rejected the idolatry of his family and departed his native land. Abraham's descendants, the Jewish people, have been outsiders throughout most of our history. Our Torah includes the narrative of our history as God's Am Segulah, treasured people, instructing us to maintain our mission and identity and not adopt the practices of our neighbors, even as we welcome strangers into our midst. We read in the prayer book earlier, Ata v'chartanu mikol ha'amim, you chose us, God, with love to be messengers of mitzvot, and we have set ourselves apart. In the ancient world, the Greeks and Romans especially disliked the Jews because they refused to assimilate. Early Christianity was troubled by the obstinate Jews who refused to accept the Christian understanding of truth. Jews were the ultimate enemy, a foreign entity that stood apart, maintained our unique identity, and to many, we were the embodiment of perpetual evil in the world. For the last 2,000 years, until 1948, we have lived in exile, lacking agency and autonomy, often subjects of suspicion and derision, resident aliens in many lands, denied the privileges and protections of citizenship. During the worst of times, Jews experienced countless injustices, were marginalized and excluded, denied opportunities and freedoms, abused, subjugated, enslaved, and murdered. During the best of times, Jews were still not free, but enjoyed some freedoms and acceptance and thrived. Ambassador Deborah Lipstadt, renowned historian, Holocaust scholar, and the current United States Special Envoy to monitor and combat anti-Semitism in the State Department, defines anti-Semitism as a conspiracy that demonizes Jews and sees them as responsible for evil. Anti-Semitism is a worldview, a conspiracy theory. Conspiracy theories offer an intentional explanation to events that may seem inexplicable. Long before a member of the U.S. House of Representatives suggested that Jewish space lasers caused wildfires, popular public figures peddled anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. In the 1930s, 30 million listeners, a quarter of the population at the time, tuned in weekly to Father Coughlin's radio show, during which he justified Kristallnacht, the 1938 Nazi pogrom or riot that targeted Jews and Jewish-owned businesses. He justified Kristallnacht as retribution for Jewish persecution of Christians. He frequently used the code phrase international bankers to refer to Jews, all the while claiming he was not anti-Semitic. Automaker Henry Ford purchased a newspaper, the Dearborn Independent, and made it the second most circulated newspaper in the country, because he required that Ford dealerships would promote the newspaper and help distribute it. The paper published a series of articles written by Ford himself detailing anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. His essays were then published and distributed even more widely in a 4-volume book titled The International Jew, the World's Foremost Problem. Over the past 40 years, the Black nationalist Louis Farrakhan has repeatedly spread anti-Semitic conspiracy theories and praised Hitler, calling Judaism a gutter religion. Today's anti-Semitic conspiracy theories often use code words for Jews, including the Rothschilds, George Soros, globalists, and even lately, Zionists. Today we hear the anti-Semitic echoes of Henry Ford from a new automaker who owns a major social media platform where, under the guise of free speech, anti-Semitic conspiracy theories are allowed and even amplified. Ye West, I hope it's Ye West and not Ye West, has echoed the anti-Semitic conspiracy theories of Louis Farrakhan and black nationalism. Deborah Lipstadt taught that if other minority groups are being targeted with hatred and prejudice, Jews should not feel immune. This is not likely to end well with Jews or the other groups. Lies about immigrants eating cats and dogs are not far removed from the blood libel, one of the most historically vicious conspiracy theories that said Jews were using the blood of Christian children in Jewish rituals, a theory used to justify violence against Jews at many points in our history. Anti-Semitism is growing on the left as well. According to an article published in the New York Times just this week, the anti-Semitic group Columbia University Apartheid Divest, the group which sparked the student encampment movement at Columbia University and inspired similar encampments on many college campuses, is now openly advocating violence and support for terrorists attacking Israel. Just this week, the group rescinded an apology that they had issued last spring after a member said that Columbia University was lucky he wasn't out killing Zionists. With so much anti-Semitism from the left and the right, I am reminded that a Jewish optimist is someone who thinks things cannot get any worse. Columbia University may be the epicenter of anti-Israel campus protests, but it was also the first secular university to have a named professorship of Jewish history, a position that was held by the great Jewish historian Salo Baron. Cautioning against what he called a lachrymose conception of Jewish history, Baron explained that suffering is a part of the destiny of the Jews, but so is repeated joy, as well as ultimate redemption. Instead of wallowing in our sorrows, we turn to humor and succinctly summarize every Jewish holiday except Yom Kippur. As they tried to kill us, we survived, let's nosh. Since we are not noshing today, perhaps we can instead add the J of Jewish tradition, ritual, and community to transform our oi into joy. In every era of our history, oppression and exclusion have led us to innovation and joy. Following the destruction of the first temple and Babylonian exile, our ancestors returned to the promised land and rebuilt the temple and flourished, even establishing the Hasmonean dynasty, a period of independent Jewish self-rule. Following the destruction of the Second Temple, the rabbinic tradition emerged, codified in the Mishnah and Talmud. Jewish mysticism arose in response to the expulsion of the Jews during the Spanish Inquisition. And the modern state of Israel arose from the ashes of Auschwitz. Following Israel's victory during the Six-Day War in 1967, anti-Semitism in America began to come from the political left as Israel was first viewed as an occupying force, and American anti-Semitism was no longer limited to Christian nationalists on the right. A Jewish Renaissance followed as Jews came together to establish Judaic and Jewish studies programs at many universities, historically liberal settings. From the oi came joy. According to statistics recorded and reported by the Anti-Defamation League, beginning in 2016, the number of anti-Semitic incidents in our nation began to rise significantly. Since October 7th, the reports of anti-Semitism have risen even more, as hatred has increased from the right and the left. But Deborah Lipstadt reminds us that an accurate accounting of the uptick in anti-Semitic incidents is important, and numbers should not be what drive us. Despite the staggering statistics, we are also seeing a wave of Jewish self-affirmation. There's been a pronounced increase in the number of people joining synagogues, enrolling children in Hebrew schools, and attending services. The Union for Reform Judaism, our national organization, reported a significant increase in adult students taking Introduction to Judaism courses, and increased interest in people interested in converting to Judaism. I would much prefer such outcomes without Jews being attacked on college campuses and in the streets, but it is encouraging to see this renewal of body and spirit. We cannot allow anti-Semitism to define us, to define Jewish identity, experience, or practice. As Professor Lipstadt taught, if anti-Semitism becomes the sole focus of our concerns, we run the risk of seeing the entire Jewish experience through the eyes of the people who hate us. In the shadow of the Holocaust, 20th century theologian Emil Fackenheim taught that the last commandment in Torah should be, "Thou shalt not grant Hitler a posthumous victory." Hitler, the terrorists who attacked Israel on October 7th, anti-Semites who have attacked our people, are driven by a desire to provoke fear and end Judaism. If we start hiding our Jewish identity, if we fundamentally change our theology or rituals because of those who want to destroy us, then the anti-Semites have succeeded in ending the Judaism that they encountered. Instead of letting other people define us, we can transform our oi into joy. We call these days Yamim Noraim, days of awe, which generally refers to us standing in awe before God. But today I stand before this sacred community filled with awe, because in being here, you bring honor to our ancestors and our traditions. The section of Torah we just read mentions all of Israel standing as one together before God, and here you are gathered together before God. The Torah explains that we all have a choice to choose to follow God and receive blessings, or to not choose and not receive blessings. Today we are faced with a similar choice. You have chosen to be here, in person or online. You've chosen to be part of our sacred community, and we are blessed with strength and comfort when we are together. If you were not here, we would not be as strong. We would be at risk of disappearing into the annals of history, another culture assimilated, another people destroyed. Sadly, the longest hatred is unlikely to disappear or dissipate anytime soon. Our legendary ability to survive in good times and bad goes beyond demonstrating collective will and resilience. We are here for a purpose, to partner with God in Tikkun Olam, the completion of creation, the mending of our world, the pursuit of peace. Together, we continue the traditions of our ancestors, and the chain of our tradition we continue infinitely forward. If you arrived here thinking oi, through Jewish community and ritual and tradition, through our mere presence today, we can all transform oi into joy. May we be sealed together for a good year, a year of productive and constructive anger, a year of feeling empowered in the presence of community and family, a year of transforming our ois into joys. Amen.